Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, that is who we've got here this morning. Dr. Bosun Tijani is the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Morning. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here. So, what a time we've got on our hands today in the country, generally speaking. But let's start off from, I think it's part of what we spoke about the last time you were here, this 3 million technical talents in the next 4 years, you said. And I know you've been speaking up about it. And so bring us up to speed. Where are you at the moment with that?
It's one of our flagship programs within the ministry. I think we carefully crafted that program to fill a gap that exists in the world, which is the fact that technology is penetrating everything we do. But we need humans to build technology. That's the fact. But most of the countries who consume technology significantly have aging population, which means they don't have the workforce to actually drive the development of technology. And in our case, we have 60% of our 230 million people under the age of 25, which means we have that vibrant group of people that we actually should be nudging towards becoming the provider of knowledge for the technical world. And that's what we've decided to do within this government. The president was quite clear about the fact that we needed to create jobs, we needed to train people, and he was particularly bullish about creating talent for technology. So what we've done with the program is to launch it. It was something I launched probably in the next month after inauguration. We came up with an implementation model because this is not a program that we want to do. We don't want to throw the numbers out there. If we can truly train 3 million technical talents in Nigeria, we will change our economy significantly because technologies contribute into how you build the complexity of the economy. So we came up with our implementation strategy of let's test with 1%, because the goal is not just to train them, but train and place them into jobs. So if we can test in the first 3 months with 1%, we'll learn quickly how to truly scale from training to placement. Then we go to 10%, which is 300,000 people. Then we can then go towards fulfilling the 3 million. So we started with the 1%. A lot of them will be completing their the training in the month of February into March. And we have over 1,000 companies that have shown interest in actually taking them on as intern so that they can move from just basic knowledge of technology into them being able to apply. And we are very hopeful that in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll start to announce those placements because I know some of these companies.
Is it software or hardware?
Oh, it's so there's about 10 areas that we focus on, skills area that we focus on, from things like cybersecurity to software development, back-end and front-end, to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and quite a number of ranging, including design as well.
But mostly,
largely on the
soft side.
On the soft side. This first batch is largely on the soft side, yeah.
I do intend to go into the hard side as time goes on.
We might, because what we did was we didn't just plot those areas randomly. There's an analysis that that is the IT development agency, which is under my ministry. They looked at the gap within the talent gap within the market. So what are the skill set that companies are looking for people to fill that we don't have enough people within the country to fill? And the hard side of things is not something where our ecosystem is quite strong yet. Because the focus of this is on jobs, we're not just futuristically just training. We want to place people into jobs immediately. So we focus on what the market is looking for.
So what is the overall target? I know you see the big picture that you're working towards. So what is it, if we're looking from the outside, that you want to achieve at the end of this program?
At the end is one to make Nigeria a net exporter of technology talent. And by net exporter, we don't mean that people necessarily live in, because within the technology space, you can now work remotely. I've been part of the tech space for the last 15 years as well. The current development in this tech startup space has been driven by less than 10,000 technical talent. The almighty Andela, which is a well-known startup that does training, they've not trained up to 10,000 people in Nigeria, yet they've been quite successful in helping to strengthen that ecosystem. So if where we are today has been built, the tech startup side of the sector is being built by less than 10,000. Imagine what will happen when we train. And because we have a president that is also quite keen on technology, he's done it significantly in Lagos. He understands the use of technology. We're constantly driving on transforming government services using technology. We cannot do all those things without the talent. So talent is the prerequisite for our digital economy. When we train people, they can build, we can export. India did it. It's nothing new. You know, India was the source of technology talent for many years. It's our time because we have everything it takes to actually be able to get there.
I'm glad that you're starting, you know, where the market, excuse me, really needs talent at this time. I remember that Governor Hope Uzodinma also talked about that while he was campaigning.
Absolutely.
You followed the campaign and how much controversy it created when he was talking about, is it finding jobs for 2 million people abroad? And that's what people imagined. But that was later on explained. How are you collaborating with the states? And I'm wondering how this 30,000 people has spread.
Also, we released a document publicly because we actually designed a model for the selection. So we look at the economic complexity of the state, the population of the state, and their ability to uptake the talents that we train. So there's an allocation that has been done based on that complexity. So you see Kano has, for instance, much more allocation. Lagos has much more allocation. So these things have been calculated based on the reality of each state. Of course, when we opened the application, that also informed, we had to tweak, you know, our model because we got more applications from certain states. So it was important that we also reflect that in the way we're selecting. But our hope is that everyone that truly wants to be part of this will get the opportunity. So far, we have about 1.8 million applications. Our goal is to get to 3 million, but we still have about 2-3 years to get there. So we are encouraging people to be part of it. We're working with the state because I'm the chairman of the Council for ICT, which includes all the commissioners from all the states. We have a group where we engage. So we work quite closely with them, leveraging their infrastructure. Because the way we're doing the training is not just for virtual training. It's a blended learning approach where you learn online, but weekly there are centers where you go into to then learn physically, but also build with people. Because with technology, it's not something you just learn and you become an expert if you don't practice. So we've also introduced what we call the learning cluster, which has been supported by IHS, for instance. They're funding that entire process. Government is now investing in it. MTN is also committing 3 billion naira to this program. So we're mobilizing resources. We're talking to World Bank to actually get this going, getting as much support as we can.
And just one more thing. Now, the reason why I'd asked you about hardware is because we also know that we spend a lot of, because right now we know we're pressed for foreign exchange. While we want to be able to export our talent, we also want to be sure that we're able to reduce how much we spend buying hardware from abroad. So I'm sure that at some point we might need to start focusing on production, because part of the reason why we're where we are is that we do not even have any area, you know, around production. We're focusing more on services, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you know, do you see any hope?
I think government
kickstarting?
No, government historically has actually supported the manufacturing of devices in Nigeria. When you look at the support that the likes of Xerox is gotten from government, I think we used to have Homatech as well, and a couple of other.
As you said, we used to have Xerox is the only one I know right now.
Well, so I think it's a combination. You know, for someone like me coming from the ecosystem, it's a combination. When we build these things, it's not just enough to support individual businesses. We have to build the entire ecosystem for it. The academic institutions must participate in research projects. And if you look at our strategic blueprint, you also see that that's an area where we're investing significantly. In the first 3 months of coming into office, we've launched a research funding scheme where we've already funded 45 artificial intelligence projects. I know some people struggle with that, but that's a technology that is coming at us significantly, and any government that is not ready, in about 12, 18 months, people will start asking questions as to where you are. And some of those things can go into the way we use hardware as well. We've also funded, more recently, demonstration projects, which are meant to use hardware, things like UAVs and all of that, in agriculture. Because agriculture is something that is, again, quite important for this government. And you can look at what the president has done since being in office. He's set aside funding for manufacturing sector. That's just to tell you that this government is aware that we need to exactly do what you were trying to explain. Right? So government is set aside funding for agriculture. Government is set aside, for manufacturing, but also for agriculture as well, because we understand that if we don't back the businesses that needs to build what we need to see, we're not going to get it. But the challenge we have is how quickly can we leverage the policy and the funding that the government is putting there. And that's what I was alluding to in our chat. Those programs are there. If you look at the economic crisis, if you break down our economy, you see that the current challenge we have, we're plugged to the global economy, so we can't say it doesn't have effect on us. If you're following the data, it does. But in trying to balance that challenge, especially on the financial side, there's also the bit where we start to look at our people. You can largely classify our people into three. When you look at economic activities, the underemployed, the people who are not employed, and those who are gainfully employed. And the way this crisis is affecting them is in different manner. But if you take down the policies and the funding programs that the president has launched since being in office, you will see intention that is speaking to each group. But the challenge is, how do we quickly accelerate the implementation of what the president as a leader is put on the table? And that's where we need the media as well. It's okay to read the headlines. These are the reality. Nobody is denying that we have the pain. But we all need to say there's an urgency. It's not business as usual. The president, with his good intention, has put together this program, put together the funding. What can we do? I'll give an example. I'm coming from the innovation space. In an ideal situation, removing fuel subsidy should mean that Nigeria is quickly accelerating and we're becoming a nation for green energy. We should be seeing acceleration programs, startups that are building, supporting significant opportunity, which by doing so, we're creating more jobs, we're becoming effective, we're supporting our economy. Those are the things we need to be talking about. What can we do to quickly accelerate those things?
We're still going to talk about that, the AI infrastructure soon, but since you, in passing, mentioned the public sector, and I said that you're making a case for digital public infrastructure in one of your documents where you talk about transforming them, and we know that it is hugely important to get that sector up and running. So if they're that nimble, we know it will translate to every other part of the country. So talk to us about what you intend to do and where you are at the moment with that project.
Again, we're feeding off the energy from the president on this one. He's done significant work in Lagos. Lagos was the first state to actually digitalize in Nigeria. And that's one thing he says he wants to do. You cannot transform public services if you're not using technology, because it has to be nimble, it has to be efficient. And one of the few ways to do that is through the use of technology. So the agenda we've set for ourselves is to ensure that, and Nigerian government has always been using technology, but what we've seen is that it's been in silos. No, it's been in silos. So when you look at identity, there's a law we've done with NIMSI, as painful as it, and NIN, for instance, as painful as it may be. The interbank settlement system in Nigeria is one of the best in the world. NIBS is one of the best in the world. Government uses TSA, the single account system for managing payment. These things are there, but what we've seen when we came into office is that because they are in silos, they don't give advantage to us.
Yeah, I heard the former Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, also talk about this.
Yeah.
The fact that, government was using technology, but they were in silos, and there was no interconnectivity amongst government offices.
Yeah.
And he did say that was something that administration was working on. So I'm wondering if they were working on something, you met nothing?
No, there's been conversation around interoperability. You can see what Galaxy Backbone is doing. But we are just building what is called the digital public infrastructure. And the focus of the digital public infrastructure is actually to take the gains. Well, you can't say we meant nothing.
I'm asking.
NIN, for instance, came from that office. And you cannot do technology in government without digital ID, because you need a single system for being able to identify every citizen. And the last minister did a fantastic job with that. It was painful exercise, but it was done. 90% of adults are now registered. Payment is already done.
90% of adults?
Yeah, 90%.
We know that for a fact?
Yes. NIMSI will tell you that. But they're still adults, but they're still young people and so many other people that are not registered.
That's not saying if we have 90%, maybe we don't need a census.
So that's where it's going. If you use technology well, you actually don't need a census. Developed countries don't do census all the time. Once you can ID everybody, and also if you follow, again, this is what I keep saying, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the government and the the President and the National Population Commission launched a new system for registering birth, death, and marriages and things like that. That's a digital system. If you have that in place, you have your NIN in place, you won't need censor eventually. So what we are doing at the minute is bringing everything that is in silo together and creating what we call the data public infrastructure, which is built on the Nigerian stack. And the Nigerian stack simply means that every government agency will be able to exchange data. Ministry of Education can pull data easily without needing to go to MPC or National Population Commission dataset, right? Ministry of Health can pull data from Ministry of Education without needing to go talk to anyone. The Statistics Office can pull data on every ministry without speaking to anyone. If you follow my activity, this is what we've been driving. And to be able to get there, it's a journey. It's more of a people issue than technology issue. That's why we started what we call the Devs in Government, which is a learning group of every technologies in government. We started that just a few weeks ago. And this group meets every week. Because without them, we can't achieve what we want to achieve. Last week, I was in Abeokuta on a retreat with all the ICT directors within the federal government, just talking about this DPI thing. To ensure that we also get it, it's not about building the technology. Today, we've just announced a program where we're connecting all local government secretariats in Nigeria. And we're starting the pilot. Because a lot of these secretariats don't have connectivity. So if we digitize government services, they're the closest to the people. If they don't have access to the internet, we will struggle. So all these things are happening, but when we can pull them together, when we can analyze them carefully, we can begin to see how they will impact on our economy.
I mean, we see some of the targets for the 774 local government area, but before we come to that, I'm just wondering, because, I mean, what we say consistently on this program is we can't afford to play politics with data.
Absolutely.
You know, we're looking at a scenario wherein probably Ministry of Food, it could be transport, it could be works, it could be anything. They need data because if government has a particular program, they don't plan for the right number of people, the other people who are left out as a result of maybe inadvertently or so, there could be crisis as a result of that.
Absolutely.
So what is the current scenario now? Are you getting the kind of support and encouragement? Are all those ministries cooperating? Is it going smoothly? Can they, and at what point, perhaps, can they say, look, we need data for this program that we're working on. We get to this agency, we get the data, and smooth.
The support that we're getting is incredible. And I think it's also because we're being human about the way we're developing this. I'm coming from the private sector, so I'm not a minister that will just give directive and say, go get things done. If you don't explain why things need to be done, people are not going to support it. And it's been uplifting to actually see, like the way you've described this, it's the same way each and every person we're interacting with is describing the value of data and interoperability in government. People know why it is important. You know, I sat there and I met someone from the Statistics Office that was telling me that for them to be able to give out facts on the economy, they source their data from 3 sources, and one of the sources is administrative statistics, which they have to collect from all the ministry. Imagine that not being automated. Just imagine the process of emailing people, going into one ministry or the other to collect that data. When she explained that in a gathering with other government officials, people could see why interoperability is important, why we must do digital public infrastructure. So as leaders, we have to be able to explain things to people. When we explain to people are good people. People talk down on civil servants a lot. That's my experience. It's not been my experience because I engage. You know, I let people see why we're doing things. I carry people along. When I go into meetings, we're at a retreat in Abeokuta. I sat through the entire retreat and everybody was looking at me like, why are you sitting? Ministers give their talks and they go continue with the business. But for me, I understand that if we all come together and have a clear understanding of why we need to do DPI, we will change lives to what you were explaining. Do you interface with INEC? Not at the minute, but I see that eventually also coming as well. Yeah, because one area too is people want to be sure that, look, there's no point of us wasting millions, billions, trillions on printing permanent voter cards, printing this. When everybody is gotten in, everybody has that data on us. So let's just streamline, go there so people know that what they see is what they get, because we know if we get that leadership recruitment process right, I mean, that can be a very huge springboard. So we're looking in the next 4 years, INEC should be on board of this. Again, I would say we're lucky to have the president that we have, in my own opinion, because it's someone who is extremely bullish about technology. What you're describing, the ability to harmonize and integrate technology, there's so many prerequisites that you need to get right. Things like connectivity, for instance. If you don't have ubiquitous access to broadband across the country, there's always going to be limitation. If you've seen what we've been putting out, this is an agenda. I've been spending time on day mobilizing partnership resources to ensure that we can achieve our objective to lay fiber optic cable across Nigeria. And we're not just doing it for Nigeria. We're building an ecosystem that can do that work. such that Nigeria will become even an expert country when it comes into how you lay fiber optic cable. And we can also begin to export that services to neighboring African countries as well. This is how we can strengthen our economy. And the president is for that. He's supporting every move, every investment that we need to do to strengthen the digital economy. The digital economy is no longer just another sector, just another economy. It's the foundation of any nation that wants to be successful.
Yeah, so today, Project 774 LG Connectivity has been launched.
Absolutely.
All right. Ayo, go ahead.
I'm actually very much interested in that one, Chamberlain. And Honorable Minister, thank you for all that you're doing. But that which Chamberlain just talked about, Project 774, you told Maokwe in response to her questions about collaboration. I'm very much interested in that. So in interfacing with the state governments, for this Project 774, exactly what is it and how is it working? Are you directly interfacing with local government chairmen, or the states are the one mediating for you? What exactly is this Project 774 about?
I'm excited that you're interested in it because that's really what I'm hoping that both the media, but also civil society organization, and even the private sector should do. What it is simple. This is the closest part of government to our people, right? If we want government to be efficient in the delivery of public services, we must empower the secretariat, the local government secretariats. We must give them the opportunity to be connected to the entire system. So what this is, of course, we're working with the state government. We're working through the state governor's office because we're going to do this in batches over the next 6 months, right? To select for a start those locations that are excluded. So there are locations where we can't get internet through fiber optic cable. So we have to use satellite. And Nigeria is the only country in West Africa with a satellite, and that satellite has the capability to be able to deploy internet services to remote locations within Nigeria. And we have a fantastic lady that is now leading NIGECOMSAT, which is the agency that is responsible. So what we're doing is selecting those locations, empowering them, ensuring that they're connected, and you see a lot of them coming online in the coming weeks because, again, like we mentioned in the document, we are creating new jobs for people that will actually go and install the satellite. We estimated about 300 jobs will be created, and these folks will work on the deployment over the next month. But we also continue to use them for subsequent deployments as well. Why is this important? Many people don't pay attention to the fact that for you to do birth registration, stillbirth, marriages, there's a ton. We've released a document of a ton of services that local government secretariats are responsible for. If those services are not connected, there's absolutely no way they are integrated into the state system real time. If they're not integrated into the state system real time, they're not integrated into the federal system real time. If they're not, there's absolutely no way the president can have a super solid understanding of what is going on across the country real time. And if we don't, we cannot deploy our resources appropriately, which is why we should all pick interest. If we connect a local government secretariat, how do we ensure that they actually deploy and use the resources that we're putting in there? Do we need civil society organizations to support in training them? NIDA will be doing part of that, where we're also deploying digital literacy in this location. But so many other parts of the economy and our society can also participate in ensuring that the connectivity is there. How do we ensure that those locations can now become hubs for economic activities that can connect not just the civil servants situated there, but also the citizens around those locations to our economy at large?
The infrastructure is one. Capability to use is another. Speak to, for instance, primary health care. How will this help in the delivery of healthcare services to the people in those areas? In the light of something that's contained in one of your documents, that some communities, some states are not as commercially viable. Give us the correlation as well as the sustainability plan.
No, so the reality is that connectivity is a universal right now, and globally you see that nations have what we call the Universal Service Provision, almost hacked in a way, that says you shouldn't limit connectivity to those who are in vibrant cities or states. It's something that everyone who is a Nigerian, for instance, in our case, must be able to access, is their right. And the way we're looking at it is, of course, there are balances. You have the USPF, which is a fund under NCC. Most countries have their Universal Service Provision Fund, for instance. Part of that fund is what we're going to be using to deploy. We need to start to see connectivity as not something that people just need to pay for. We need to start to see it as the way you see your roads, right, or your hospitals, the critical infrastructure that you need for any economy to thrive. On the issue of healthcare facilities and connecting them, that you're actually taking me along the line of a new project that we've not yet announced. But along the line, we're working with the Ministry of Health to also launch the exact program where we're looking for the right business model to ensure we can actually provide connectivity to all healthcare facilities in Nigeria. And that's something, again, we're going to be launching before the end of this year, probably sometimes in the middle of the year. We'll look at the business model. How do we pay? Where do we get the funding from? The luck that we have as a nation is also that the government is investing in some of this infrastructure. I mentioned earlier that Nigeria is the only country in West Africa with a satellite. We have a company, for instance, that is owned by the government that is called the Galaxy Backbone, which has fiber network. It's owned by the government, and that fiber network can be used to provide internet. So where you find that it is not economically viable for private companies to provide this connectivity, government infrastructure will be used, because the role of government is also to provide that infrastructure that can allow other services to be built on it. So it's not charity in a way, it's ensuring that if our healthcare facilities are connected, there's clear medical health record, which can be used across the nation, which means it's also going to reduce the cost of providing health services as well. So it's balancing it out, and that's the way we're looking at the sustainability of programs like this.
You know, Dr. Tijani, something you said in response to one of Chamberlain's questions, you talked about exchange of data across board. Is it a problem of exchanging data or harmonizing data? I understand that previously, I don't know whether it was this government or the previous governments, have talked about the need for us to put all of our data in one basket. INEC has data, banks have data, vehicle inspection has data, FRSC has data. They're just, as you said, in silos here and there. Is there a need or a difficulty in putting everything together in one spot, governed and secure, so that, you know, we don't have this multiplicity of data spread all over the place? And then, as you said, maybe we may not need to spend billions on census.
No, so harmonization is quite an old way of looking at data. If you look at the value of data and the fact that data is always constantly evolving. The concept of data today is not just about what you do with it now, but your ability to reuse it as well. So what you're speaking to, there will be the need for us to, if we think harmonizing and having a central place for storing it. But I think the most important thing is actually using application interfaces to be able to call data from wherever they are. Of course, government has standards in place for what you do with data. Nigeria now has a Data Protection Commission, which is just a year old. And that commission is working actively to ensure we can standardize the use of data. In fact, they're beginning to find companies that are not following the prescribed way of managing people's data in Nigeria. People don't know this yet, but this is something that is already happening in country. So most of the big companies, like the banks, are already used to the fact that they need to follow certain procedure because data is extremely important. So the harmonization in itself is already happening, but the biggest part is exchange. Right? Because people will use and reuse data for so many reasons to make sense out of how to govern society, how to run programs. And if we can create an exchange system, a data exchange system, which means regardless of where you find yourself, you can find data on a critical part of the economy that is important for the program you're building, then it makes your work a lot easier because you can dimension things better. You can understand how to deploy your resources better. So that's how we're going about it. Now, the harmonization itself will happen where people need to store in certain places because you may not be able to force that everyone should store in a single location. But if it's not in a single location, that there's a system in place that allow anybody that needs to call any data set to call them seamlessly when needed.
Yeah, the question then would be why not? But hey, maybe there will be reasons that you may not be able to say, because people will always reference other part of the world.
There's no reason. Sorry for barging in. Sorry for barging in. And this is what I was saying. There's no reason. There's no reason. I'm a minister and I'm putting myself on the spot. This government has made it clear. It's in my blueprint. We release documents on this every day. Follow the work. Whenever I come back here, ask me this question. Where are we headed with it? I don't think we need to always be cynical that things cannot work in this country because it's not the truth.
No, I get that. I get that point.
But we have to be topical about our conversations.
Understandably, the reason I ask is, Chamberlain also asked you about NIN. If we have NIN, you should be able to call up any data anywhere in the country. Well, perhaps some other time. There's this one that I have to ask you, and that is about the engagement of government with young people. Mark, I asked you the other time about the realities that we are contending with right now. Rising cost of living for so many people across the country, which is already seeing some kinds of, unrest here and there, in the country. And that warning from the AFDB. Engaging with the people will perhaps help to stave off some of this tension, calm some nerves. Some of the initiatives that you're talking about now, a number of people will be wondering, I don't even know about them. You're engaging with states. States are not telling their people, for instance, that these things are happening. How do we engage? How should we engage the people? You are a federal minister, so your job is not just to your ministry, it's across boards one way or the other. So how do we engage people so as to calm nerves and reduce tension in the country?
So I think our nation is at a critical time, and what I would like to say to that comment is, right now in the world, the largest talent accelerator is 3MTT, and anybody can challenge that notion. In less than 2 months of putting that program out, 1.8 million Nigerians applied for it. The 1.8 million Nigerians that applied for this program are from every single local government in Nigeria, every single local government. I can make that data set available if people need it. Those people are being thoroughly engaged. And if any one of them is watching, I'm challenging them that they also need to speak out about what they're saying, what they're enjoying. We have local training centers across this country engaging those people. I think there are times where we use whole narratives to distort what people hear. And these things are important to the mood in the nation. The programs that we're running under FMCID. For instance, 2 weeks ago, immediately after the new year, we were engaging in embedded system. You talked about hardware. We had 1,500 kids building embedded system. It's the largest in the world where Raspberry Pi was being used. This is a fact that can be checked. Raspberry Pi is not a Nigerian company. They manufacture the kits. The largest in the world, 1,500 in 3 states. 50 schools in each state participating. We gathered these folks for a full week. Some of them, when I saw some of these kids, some of them are even on Twitter, even though I was worried as a secondary school kid, what are you doing there? But they're there. And I saw their comments and I was extremely encouraged and impressed. We are engaging. We've launched a program for girls that is now out that people are engaging. The artificial intelligence program that we launched, a lot of people will say Nigeria is not ready. We got over 3,000 applications from Nigerians who are working in AI within Nigeria, not outside of Nigeria.
So I think the only follow-up I have to that, were those government schools or were those private institutions, the ones that participated in the...
Government.
Well, they were government schools.
All government schools.
So would you say that more public schools are getting more and more into technology and the need to incorporate it?
Absolutely. When I came in, I did the map and I released it. Government, not just this government, has been investing in computer centers in our schools for years. You know what is missing? There's a need for us to keep upskilling the teachers so that they can put it to good use, right? That's what is missing. Some of them even have solar panel to support their use of alternative energy source, just so that the labs can keep going. In some of them, the Parent Teachers Association are supporting them. We need the civil society organizations to also work with us on this. Engage some of those schools, build the capacity. There's significant things being done. We will continue to see more. I'm very hopeful. When I came into office, I started releasing weekly report of my activities. Weekly report of my activities. We share it on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We have a WhatsApp channel. I go to places constantly traveling around, engaging. We engage.
Let's wind down with this AI component.
Yeah.
Government agencies will need your help on that one.
Absolutely.
I know that the National Assembly are talking about amending the Constitution, also paying attention to AI. NAFDAC, I think they also will need to step up a little bit because products, several people online, they're cloning things, putting people's voices, regulatory agencies can't seem to catch up. So what is your thinking about AI infrastructure in the country?
I think, obviously, this is not unique to Nigeria. I think artificial intelligence is moved and developed so quickly. Till today, you still have people. After this interview, there will be people on Twitter that will say, but, you know, this is a fancy toy that Bosun is playing with. That's why he's talking about AI, that it's useless, we shouldn't be talking about. And that was what happened. Many countries looked away from it because we thought it's something for the really developed world until ChatGPT came last year. Most people couldn't relate with AI. But when ChatGPT came, it became something that was realistic. But I'll break it down. The simple explanation of artificial intelligence is that we've been able to figure, the technology ecosystem has been able to figure out how to teach machines to think like human. People should just understand that. So right now, for those who use internet, you're coming into the era of a few technologies that will help you think. ChatGPT is already doing that. They will think for you. They will nudge you in the direction of how you think. So now imagine if that technology is not inclusive. Because the way it's done is that they use what we know to train machines. So imagine if what we know in Nigeria, what we know in Africa, if your language is not being used to train the machine, imagine we wake up in 5 years' time, ChatGPT is already mainstream. It's going to be another level of racism where technology doesn't understand our reality. And it's the responsibility of government to ensure that we can catch up. While some people may be fickle about it, they may not be able to see how this impact. We can't only always focus on solving wicked problems, you know, those immediate problems of poverty. We have to address those things, they're important. But we have to also project into understanding that if you leave things that will happen in 2 years, by the time you think you're done solving poverty issues, in 2 years' time, you have another level of poverty that because you've not projected into what is happening in the future. So since I came into office, Nigeria is now a big player in this space. There's absolutely no major event in the world that I'm not being invited to. I'm having to choose because I can't be everywhere. We're getting support. We're also creating a number of things. End of March, we're bringing together 200 people from all over the world, most of them of Nigerian descent, who are working at the highest level of artificial intelligence, to help us come up with a strategy on what we should be doing with our little resources. How should we be approaching AI? So this is not something I'm sitting in my office to determine. And we're getting support for that. We're not even spending government money to do that. You know, we're getting support to do that. We want, and lastly on AI, what we need to know is that if you follow the development, all the developed countries in the world are desperate to ensure that they can build artificial intelligence to support their economy. They cannot build it because their population is aging. They need workforce.
So we have
the workforce. So if we don't participate in it, even if it's just to train our people to be able to take in that opportunity, we're missing out. Right. So this is why we're very serious about artificial intelligence in this government.
All right. We do thank you for coming on. Dr. Bosun Tijani is the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy.